Hi, today I'm going to talk about a book called Empire, written by Hardt and Negri. In this book, the authors argue that the traditional structures of power and sovereignty are replaced by a networked, decentralized, and global order. First, I'm going to talk about how nation states have given away their sovereignty to supranational entities like the United Nations. Then, I want to talk about how global flow driven by transnational cooperations redefines the world's architecture. Lastly, I'm going to talk about how multitude can serve as a source of resistance to empire. According to the authors, United Nations are the accumulations of the constitutive process that expose the limitations of the traditional notions of international order and signals a shift towards the new notions of global order. The UN judicial structure stands as a new center for creating norms and exercising sovereign judicial authority on a global scale. Nonetheless, the UN conceptual structure necessitates the recognitions and legitimations of the sovereignty of individual states. Yet this process of legitimization is only effective to the extent that it transfers sovereign rights to a supranational center. The pursuit of international order is not an ultimate goal, but rather a crucial transition towards a properly global system. As intended by Hans Kelsen through the UN, the objective is to develop a notion of rights that can evolve into an organization of humanity and thus align with a supreme ethical idea. Thus, this notion of rights is confirmed in the constructions of a new order that encompasses the entire expanse of what it deems to be civilization, an infinite and all-encompassing universal domain. Empire does not represent a continuation of imperialism because it no longer involves conflicts or competitions among various imperialist powers. Instead, it is a unified power that exercises control over them all. A new notion of rights has emerged in empire, along with a new design for norms and legal instruments to enforce agreements and resolve conflicts. The key to interpreting the all-encompassing social processes of empire can be observed in the shift from traditional international law, defined by contract and treaties, to the formulations and establishment of a new sovereign, supranational global authority. One of the empire's distinct powers is its ability to conduct just wars. While ethics is intrinsic to any judicial system, empire takes the alignment of the ethical and the judicial to the extreme, ensuring both peace and the guarantee of justice for all people. This is achieved through the authority of a single unitary power that maintains social peace and establishes its ethical principle through the use of force, both against external threats, referred as barbarians in the book, and internal rebellions. Empire presents its order as permanent, eternal, and necessary, with the notion of right encompassing all time within its ethical foundation. In empire, war is de-escalated to the status of police action, and a new power that legitimately exercises ethical function through warfare is sacredized. As a result, the judicial power to rule over exceptional situations and the ability to deploy police force define the imperial model of authority. Consequently, the legitimacy of police actions is derived from the universal values. The new judicial apparatus represents a global order, a justice, and a right that apply to us, however virtual. Influenced by the prevailing social order, our internal moral dispositions is increasingly shaped by the ethical, political, and judicial categories of empire. It follows that the external morality of every human being and citizen is now only accessible within the context of empire. One example that illustrates just war is the US participations in the Gulf War. During this conflict, the military actions were carried out in the name of global rights rather than national interests. The international organizations, recognizing the US roles in enhancing the legal effectiveness of a new supranational legal framework after the Cold War, sought to extend its central role in the emerging world order. In the late 20th century, US was compelled to intervene militarily in the name of peace and order, even if they were initially reluctant. This demonstrates that empire is rooted in a global context that consistently summons it into being. The U.S. role as a peace police can be attributed by its constitutional inclinations. The U.S. Constitution is designed to redefine an open space and consistently adapt to diverse and singular relations and network across an unbounded territory, a central theme in Empire as well. It prompts the questions whether the author's position still holds true for the United States. If not, in what form is Empire summoned currently? The authors emphasize the flow of capital, informations, goods, and people as central elements of the world's architecture. They argue that the global flows of these resources are essential for the modern world's functioning, often governed by the transnational cooperations. Alongside globalizations, the sovereignty of national states have progressively declined. The primary factors of production and exchange, money, technology, people, and goods, move with increasing ease across borders. Consequently, the national state has diminishing influence to control these flows and intervene in the economy. Cooperations are actively shaping and organizing regions and populations. Nation-states become merely tools for recording the movement of commodities, finances, and people that corporates arranges. Thus, transnational cooperations directly manage the distribution of labor, allocate resources, and establish hierarchical structures globally. Furthermore, the intricate system responsible for choosing investment and guiding financial and monetary strategies determines the new geographical layout of the global market, hence the new biopolitical organizations of the world. Thus, cooperations do more than just manufacturing goods, but molding subjectivities by generating needs and social connections. For example, corporations like Meta and Google have shaped our modes of communication more significantly than the governments. Many cooperations have also influenced our desires and needs through advertisements. Lastly, the authors argue that this multitude, which represents a diverse and interconnected global population, has the potential to challenge and shape the architecture of the world. They see the multitude as a source of political power and a resistance against empire. Multitude desires liberations. Yet, the class struggle remains a significant obstacle. To resist empire, one of the ways the multitude can do is to demand global citizenship. Capitalism itself has sought increased labor mobility and continuous migration across borders. Consequently, the demand here is for the legal recognition of the existing reality of capitalistic productions, granting all workers full citizenship rights. Additionally, the ultimate goal of global citizenship is to secure the general right to control one's own movement. Second is to demand the right to social wage and a guaranteed income for all. The third is to demand the right to reappropriation. However, the practical implementations of these demands remain unknown. In conclusion, the concept of the world's architecture, as articulated by the authors, underscores the transitions in a global order. Traditional structures of power and sovereignty are yielding ground to a networked, decentralized paradigm that extends across nations. This evolving landscape introduced new dynamics to the concept of empire, where just wars and ethical governance takes on a new dimension. The flow of capital, information, goods, and people across borders, driven by transnational cooperations, further redefines the world's architecture, impacting the notion of citizenship, social welfare, and individuals' desires. In this ever-changing environment, the multitude emerges as a source of resistance. Thank you, and I hope you enjoyed my presentations on the book today. Bye-bye.